All right, what's going on? So, this video, we're going to be looking at niches, the best niches to go into. Now, I think most of us will have heard there's the best three niches, which do make sense, and those are health, wealth, and relationships. But ultimately, there's a ton of niches which you can really get involved in and make a lot of money in, okay? Some super profitable niches that don't fit inside those three big umbrellas, okay? So let's just talk about the three big ones to start with, because it's obviously important that we do, because like it or lump it, they are seriously good niches. So health is self-explanatory, right? It's where I've made most of my money. Most of my campaigns are in health. And it's just a super profitable niche, and it really fits our criteria. So for me to consider an offer, the niche that the offer is in has to have or match two things, okay? One, it has to have mass appeal, meaning it has to have a wide, broad audience. So I can get longevity and consistency out of my campaign and obviously scale it to decent numbers, right? So that's number one. Number two, there has to be pain points that we can solve with our offer, okay? So let's just stay on health for the time being. Let's take weight loss as an example, probably the biggest market out there. Does it have mass appeal? Yes. A huge amount of people want to lose weight, okay? That's just, again, self-explanatory. It's, most people want to lose weight. So yes, it has mass appeal. It doesn't take a genius to work that out. Two, does it solve pain points? Yeah, absolutely. Because, if the person is obese, maybe they are in pain and discomfort, maybe their joints ache, maybe they can't walk up the stairs without being out of breath, maybe they can't play with their grandkids, so there's psychological pain there without being out of breath or in pain, right? So we have these pain points that we can really tap into. Now let's take another sub-niche of the health space, like blood sugar. High blood sugar, again, obviously there's the pain and discomfort that high blood sugar can cause, but also there's the angle of medication, okay? Prescribed medication, drugs to treat high blood sugar. They could be seriously expensive depending where you live, right? So the blood sugar, the drugs or medication that person might be taking to control their blood sugar levels could be seriously expensive. Okay, so that's a pain point right there. And two, there might be side effects from taking those medications. Okay, again, massive pain points. So we can see how these pain points can sort of help provide our offer as a solution, our offer being a natural alternative to that drug or medication. Okay. One, it's natural. You're not going to get side effects like you are from the prescribed drug. Two, it's not going to be anywhere near as expensive, right? So, hopefully that has insight for you to be able to look. So let's quickly look at wealth as well. So obviously wealth, huge niche. There aren't going to be many people, if you were to approach them in the street and offer them $1,000 or more money, that would turn that down, right? So wealth is another huge mass appeal market, vertical, niche, whatever you want to call it. And obviously there's pain points in there as well. Pain points being they might be in debt, right? They're struggling to pay the rent, pay the bills. They've got bailiffs coming around trying to take the car, take the television, take their items, their possessions. So that's a huge pain point, right? Not able to live the life that they maybe want to live because they're living paycheck to paycheck. They can barely scrape by. They can't support the family, right? So again, huge pain points in that market, in that vertical that we can play into with our offer. Again, we don't want to be scammy. We don't want to be making claims. And I know, some of these offers are overly aggressive and make claims that are, unrealistic. But we want to make sure that we have a good balance of, not making it too scammy or too out of reach, because that's going to come back and bite us in the backside. If we are making those stupid claims, then we might see a spike in refunds and chargebacks if that person realizes that, this is not what I bought into, right? Okay, so relationships we'll quickly touch on as well. So I think it's, again, this might not be a term, but I think it's a basic human need to have a companion and to have love in your life, right? So most people want a companion, right? They want a partner, they want to start a family, etc., etc. Most people, not everyone, but most people. Okay, that is a huge market, mass appeal, right? This is going to fit a demographic. Now, some people are going to already have a companion. Some people have no problem in finding a companion. You know, there's a bunch of different ways you can do that now, right? By, you know, some of the old school methods where you're actually going out and meeting someone in real life, or swiping right, left, up, down, whichever way you want to swipe on some of these apps, right? So there's a bunch of ways that you can do that, but also there's issues that people have, such as confidence, right? So now we're getting into the pain points where maybe someone doesn't have the confidence to approach people, etc., and an offer that sort of caters for that need to solve that pain point might be very attractive to someone who does suffer from that. And you can look, and in fact we will look in a second, some of these niches that we'll look into. There's some amazing offers and some really interesting offers that help solve some very interesting pain points and problems. Okay, so the bottom line is, yeah, the three big niches, health, wealth, and relationships, are great, and I would recommend, if you're starting out or quite new to doing this, I would definitely recommend sticking in one of those three big niches. And even more so, to go a step further, I would recommend going into health, right? Again, this is where I've really, you know, made my bread and butter from the last few years, playing in this vertical, in the health space, and exploring a bunch of different sub niches in the health space, which we'll touch on in a second as well. But it's just a massively profitable market. Most health offers have mass appeal, and most health offers have some of the biggest pain points, okay? Some can be life and death, right? You're not going to get much of a bigger pain point than that type of pain point, right? Life and death. So obviously, again, we don't want to be too scammy. We don't want to be making claims that aren't necessarily true. And some of these offers are a little bit outlandish, but, you know, I try and swerve those. I want ones that aren't going to get high refunds, high chargebacks. So that's something that I take into account as well. All right. So before we move on, let's touch on some other niches as well. And so you can see on my screen, I've got ClickBank open. I'm at the marketplace. You can literally type into Google ClickBank Marketplace. It's going to bring you to this page. You don't need an account to sort this out. However, we will be using ClickBank going forward in this training. So if you don't already have an account, then it's probably a good idea that you sign up at some point soon. So first thing I want to draw your attention to is this top, bar, the menu bar, I guess, at the top. And basically we have a list of wide niches or verticals or categories. And we can see business investing is going to come under the wealth sort of vertical, right? Green products is related to sustainable and renewable energy, those type of things, and we can dive into that in a second. Cooking, food and wine, again, like recipes, etc. Home and garden, I don't actually know what is in home and garden. So animal care and pets seems to be the top category or sub niche in this vertical. Crafts and hobbies such as woodworking, as we can see up here. My shed plans. You can see there's some very interesting offers, right? I think maybe even chicken coop. There was an offer about building a chicken coop. I wonder if that's still around. Build your own shipping container home. Interesting what people are making money from, right? And it goes to show that you don't have to stick in one of these big niches, health, wealth, and relationships. This doesn't fit any of those, right? Self-help. So self-help, we've got the relationships, dating guides, marriage and relationships. This is a good indicator. These sort of sub-niches and the number next to them is telling us how many offers are on the scoreboard on ClickBank inside of these categories, okay? So we can see dating guides are 84, marriage and relationships is 102, motivational is 44. So we have an idea of how popular this sub-niche is, right? Which gives us a good indicator as to how well it's doing. Survival is a very interesting niche and something that we'll just quickly touch upon with trending and seasonal niches, okay? So what you'll find is some offers and some niches can perform better at certain times of the year. For instance, weight loss is huge in January for obvious reasons. Everyone's making, New Year's resolutions. Everyone wants to lose the Christmas timber. Okay, so we get a real good peak in January. And then we also get a real good peak in, pre-summer. Okay, just leading up to summer when people are getting ready to go on holiday or vacation and getting ready for the good weather to kick in. And, they want to feel comfortable in t-shirts, bikinis, tops off, etc., right? So you can see that there's, a trending, seasonality to that. Weight loss is great all year round. I'm not saying that, outside of those two periods, weight loss sucks. No, weight loss is great 12 months of the year. But you'll see that there's more volume and usually conversion rates are higher in January and pre-summer, okay? Now, to touch on survival, this is another sort of one that has trends. When we have, big catalysts such as the Ukraine and Russia for sure, and then also more recently the Israel-Palestine conflict that happened, I think, in September, survival kicked off. Like survival went through the roof for obvious reasons, right? There's, crazy things happening in the world, right? There's war going on, and those type of countries are a little bit closer to home for Western countries, such, Israel is usually an ally of Western countries, and, Ukraine is in Europe. So, those ones punch a little bit harder than, the Middle East, or I know Israel sort of fits Middle East, but some of the places where war has been going on and continues to go on. And obviously we don't want to, we're not talking about capitalizing on other people's misfortune, but we can capitalize, if we're helping people, solve a solution that they're looking for. There's a lot of doomsday preppers in the US, right? There's a lot of people that want to be prepared, and rightly so, especially in this current climate. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, another thing that is important that I'm gearing up for this year is we have the elections coming up. Okay, so the US have elections. I think it's September or October. So that's a crazy time, right? These next few months leading up to that could be insanely profitable for survival. Again, we usually see weird little freaking catalysts popping up, right? And, crazy stories being unearthed, and, threats from anywhere, right? Whether it be domestic or international. Again, that plays nicely into a survival offer. So that's something interesting to take on board as well. And there's people making an absolute killing with survival. Again, 12 months of the year, it doesn't have to be trending. I'm just saying sometimes you can capitalize on peaks, okay? And those peaks can come from these type of catalysts that we're talking about. There's still money to be made outside of these catalysts, but I'm just saying, you can sometimes spot trends, okay? All right, so survival, spirituality. This is more like manifestation. There's some really good offers in the manifestation space that have really started to pop. Here's one, and we'll talk about gravity in the next video, but we've got the gravity score here, which is 300, which is a really solid gravity score. We'll talk about more on that in another video. But there's, Genius Wave. There's, what else have we got? The Divine Prayer somewhere here. Divine Prayer. This looks like Soulmate Sketch. Sounds like a dating offer, but maybe it's not. Manifestation. So, you can see manifestation seems to be pretty good. We've got 150 in general, and I would say most of those big ones in that space there, in that sub niche, would be in the manifestation space. It doesn't look like there's a manifestation sub niche written down, so I would say most of them are being placed in the general category. Again, a space that can be 12 months of the year. Obviously, there's people doing well with it, and we'll get more into how to find these hot offers and to confirm that they're doing well in the next video. But for this one, I just want to talk about niches. So again, I'm just talking through, obviously, again, like I said, I recommend health, okay? Outside of health, wealth and relationships for sure. But if you have a bit more experience, or if you have, existing prior knowledge or passion in one of these niches outside of the big three, by all means, feel free to do that. I just think, someone starting out and a little bit wet behind the ears, you're going to have more chance of success in the health space, okay? E-business and e-marketing is going to be biz op stuff, online, make money online kind of things. So again, would fit into the wealth category. Health and fitness, obviously health. And then we've got these top offers and new offers. So we will touch on these in the next video as well. But for this video, we'll cap it there. Again, this was solely just to talk a little bit about niches. You know, there's no right or wrong. You know, again, like I really have the two criterias of mass appeal and pain points, and they could be anywhere, right? You know, like if we were to go back to the home and garden, woodworking, you know, the pain point could be, you know, he's a shoddy, you know, handyman, you know, wants to get into DIY, you know, can't afford to pay, wants to build a shed or whatever, right? Can't afford to pay for the shed or for pay for someone to build it for them. Learn how to do it yourself, right? Again, that's just off the cuff. And I know there's way better pain points that you'd be able to hit there, but you know, we're just trying to delve into it. It's probably not a space that I'd go into. Manifestation, obviously there will be pain points there, and it's usually linked to some of the bigger spaces, such as health, wealth, and relationships. So you'll see a lot of the angles in manifestation, which we can see here, billionaire brainwave, as the name suggests, billionaire, right? It's trying to attract money. So kind of could segue into wealth, I think. And you'll see a lot of the manifestation offers have that kind of angle, or it's attracting, you know, a companion, you know, a partner for a relationship, again, which would then segue into the relationship space. So conscious that this is getting a little bit long, so we'll cap it off there. I think the best way to do, you know, the best thing to do is select a niche. Again, I would say go with health, but if you have more experience in another niche or a passion in another niche and you really want to make a go of it, then feel free. All right, so in the next video, we're going to touch on finding hot offers and confirming that they are proven to convert.